A procession only 3.6 kilometers long can take an entire city hostage to emotion. In Belém, at the mouth of the Amazon, a route that looks short on a map becomes a human ocean so dense that movement slows to a pulse. By the time the image reaches the basilica, more than 2 million people may have filled streets, rooftops, boats, windows, sidewalks, and squares. From above, it looks almost impossible. From the ground, it feels even stranger. Part pilgrimage, part homecoming, part living memory of a city that seems to move as one. This is Brazil's Círio de Nazaré, the Great October Procession of Belém, capital of the state of Pará. It is often described as one of the largest Catholic gatherings on earth, but scale alone does not explain why it leaves such a deep mark. What makes Círio unforgettable is the setting. This is not a European stone city or a quiet hilltop sanctuary. It unfolds in the humid heat of the Amazon region, among colonial streets, crowded avenues, river ports, market life, bright flowers, handmade toys, food stalls, motorcycles, decorated boats, and a basilica square that becomes the emotional center of an entire state. At first glance, the event seems simple. A wooden image is carried from Belém's Sé Cathedral in the old historic district to Sanctuary Square, where the Basilica of Our Lady of Nazaré stands. But the real story begins here, because Círio is not just one procession on one Sunday morning. It is a long festival cycle, shaped by more than 2 centuries of history, with official processions on land and water, neighborhood rituals, volunteer networks, family traditions, and symbols so specific that even a rope, a poster, and a mantle can carry generations of meaning. According to historical records, the roots of the devotion in Belém go back to around the year 1700, when a man known as Plácido José de Souza is said to have found a small image of Our Lady of Nazareth near a stream in the area where the basilica now stands. But there is another side to this story. The exact details are debated. Some accounts say he found the image among stones near water. Others say it was in a tree or in a natural niche hidden by vegetation. Even the image's deeper origin is uncertain, though one widely accepted view is that it likely came from Portugal. What historians agree on is that the discovery story quickly grew into local devotion. Plácido reportedly built a simple shelter for the image, and over time that site drew more visitors. Bishops in colonial Pará documented the story, and the place gradually shifted from an isolated devotional stop into a recognized religious center. In other words, Círio did not begin as a giant public spectacle. It began with a small image, a fragile local tradition, and a landscape that was still more frontier than city. The first official Círio procession is generally dated to September 8, 1793. By then, the devotion had moved beyond private memory and into formal public ritual. Historical accounts connect that first procession to colonial authorities, church leadership, and a vow linked to Francisco de Souza Coutinho, then Captain General of Grão-Pará in Rio Negro. Official recognition had been requested earlier, and by the end of the 18th century, the event was becoming a fixed part of Belém's calendar. That matters because once a ritual enters the public life of a city, it begins to absorb everything around it: politics, commerce, identity, emotion, and the changing shape of urban life. That is why Círio is celebrated today. In the Catholic tradition of Pará, the festival honors Our Lady of Nazareth, long associated with protection and patronage in the region. But in documentary terms, the festival now operates on several levels at once. For many participants, it is a devotional act. For others, it is a family obligation, a promise kept, a reunion, a cultural inheritance, or simply the moment when being from Pará feels most visible. Over time, Círio became both a religious procession and a public expression of regional identity. And this is exactly what makes the festival different. Who celebrates it? Almost everyone with some connection to Belém seems to have a role. Local families prepare months in advance. Volunteers distribute water and help organize crowds. Florists decorate the ceremonial carriage. Designers create the mantle worn by the image. Artisans produce objects, ribbons, candles, posters, and palmwood toys. Boat owners join the river procession. Motorcyclists take part in their own escort. Runners, cyclists, children, people with reduced mobility, and youth groups have dedicated processions in the wider festival cycle. Tourists arrive from other parts of Brazil and abroad. Many residents of Pará who now live elsewhere return home specifically for Círio. UNESCO has even noted that for many people the festival functions as an annual homecoming, and yet most people outside Brazil never notice how early the city begins transforming. Officially, the broader celebration begins well before the main Sunday procession, with activities stretching from August into late October. By the time the main week arrives, Belém is already tuned to a different rhythm. Small altars appear in homes, shops, bars, markets, and public institutions. The official poster, a tradition that dates back to the 19th century, spreads across walls and storefronts. Streets along the route are cleaned, marked, and secured. Stands go up for spectators. Hotels fill quickly. The heat is intense, so water planning becomes part of the city's survival strategy. Businesses adjust to the season too. Restaurants prepare for the flood of visitors. Street vendors stock drinks, candles, ribbons, snacks, and devotional objects. Transport systems brace for unusual pressure. Families coordinate where to stand, who will host lunch, and how early they must leave home. In Belém, Círio is not an event you casually wander into at the last minute. It is a logistics operation wrapped in emotion. That pressure can be felt in the simplest details. Extra ice, folded chairs on balconies, temporary barriers, rented viewing spots, and careful conversations about where to meet if the crowd separates people. Then there are the symbols, and Círio is full of them. The most visually famous is the berlinda, the ornate carriage that carries the image during the main processions. It has been part of the festival since the 19th century, and the current berlinda, introduced in 1964, is the fifth in the procession's history. Built in red cedar in a Baroque style, later renewed with gold leaf detailing and modern lighting, it is not just transport. It is one of the festival's visual anchors, instantly recognizable in footage from Belém. The mantle is another key detail. Every year, a new mantle is designed for the image, and its unveiling becomes a major moment of anticipation. The cloth, shape, embroidery, and symbolism matter deeply to participants. But even for viewers with no religious connection, it functions as visual storytelling. One year it may feel regal, another intimate, another historically referential. In documentary terms, the mantle is brilliant because it condenses the whole festival into fabric, memory, craftsmanship, expectation, and the desire to present something beautiful to the public eye. Then there is the rope, perhaps the most physically dramatic object in the entire event. It became part of Círio in 1885 after flooding along Guahara Bay left the procession's carriage stuck in mud. Horses could not pull it, so a local merchant reportedly offered a rope, and people themselves dragged the carriage forward. The improvisation became tradition. Today, the rope used in the main weekend processions is produced specifically for the event, and in 2026, the official organizers say it will again be made in Para from Amazonian Malva fiber, with roughly 800 meters produced in two 400-meter sections, one for the Trasladação and one for the main Círio. What began as emergency equipment became one of the festival's strongest public symbols. Círio's full procession cycle is much larger than most outsiders realize. There are 14 official processions across the calendar. Before the main Sunday comes the transfer of ceremonial cars, the long move to Ananindeua, the road pilgrimage, the fluvial procession on the bay, the motorcycle escort, and the famous Saturday night Trasladação. After Sunday come events for cyclists, youth, children, runners, accessibility groups, parish communities, and finally the Círio, which closes the cycle 15 days later. So when people speak of Círio as if it were a single march, they miss the deeper structure. This is a choreography of movement across city, suburb, road, river, and memory. The weekend before the main Sunday is where Belém begins to feel almost unreal. On Friday, the image is transferred toward Ananindeua in the metropolitan region. Before dawn on Saturday, the road pilgrimage begins, covering about 24 kilometers toward Ikoarashi. The light is still soft, but the atmosphere is already intense. Asphalt radiates heat early. People line the route in practical clothing, caps, light shirts, and sneakers. Others carry candles or ex-votos, objects offered in thanks or remembrance. Volunteers move through the crowd with water. Police, traffic officers, and support teams work in the background. because moving devotion through a modern city requires infrastructure as much as emotion. By morning, the festival reaches the water, and Belém reveals another face of itself. The fluvial Romaria carries the image across Guajara Bay, and suddenly the story shifts from streets to river horizon. Official reports have described more than 400 boats joining the procession, with tens of thousands of participants and even jet skis surrounding the main vessel. Decorated hulls, banners, river wind, engines, horns, sunlight flashing on brown water, and the distant city skyline create one of the most unusual religious images anywhere in the world. Boats matter here for a reason. In local tradition, Our Lady of Nazaré is associated with sailors, so the river procession is not a side event. It is part of the festival's Amazonian character. When the image reaches the port area, the mood changes again. State honors, controlled access, and then another transformation, the Moto Romaria. Motorcyclists escort the image through central Belém in a burst of engines, chrome, helmets, and disciplined movement. It is one of those details that would seem invented if you had not seen it. A centuries-old festival with colonial roots suddenly includes a motorcycle procession through modern urban traffic corridors. And that collision between old and new happens again and again throughout Círio. Later on Saturday, attention turns back toward the Basilica, and then to Colegio Gentil Bittencourt, where the evening procession gathers for the Trasladação. If the Sunday Círio is bright, crowded, and monumental, the Trasladação is darker, tighter, and more electric. It follows the same 3.6-kilometer route as the Sunday procession, but in reverse, moving from the school to the cathedral. Night deepens. Streetlights glow over packed avenues. Candles appear. The rope is attached. The crowd surges and compresses. This is the moment when Belém stops feeling like a city hosting an event and starts feeling like the event itself. By the time Sunday arrives, people are already exhausted, but the biggest morning is still ahead. Long before sunrise, the route from the Sé Cathedral in Cidade Velha to Sanctuary Square is awake. Sidewalks are occupied. Balconies are full. Some families have held their places for hours. Vendors sell cold drinks, snacks, ribbons, and portable rain covers, because in the Amazon, even clear skies can surprise you. Others sell candles or small keepsakes. Around the route, shutters rise, speakers are tested, barriers are checked, and medics stand ready. In the thick, humid air, anticipation builds like weather. As the crowd grows, so does the visual complexity. White shirts stick to people's backs in the heat. Flags and banners move above heads. Windows are dressed with cloth and images. Children sit on shoulders. Elderly spectators lean from balconies. Security lines try to hold shape against pressure from every side. On any normal morning, a 3.6-kilometer stretch through downtown Belém is just city space. On Círio morning, it becomes a corridor of compressed emotion, and every meter feels contested. Then the procession begins. The image leaves the cathedral, and the mass of people starts to move with it. Slowly, often painfully slowly. From a distance, the Berlinda seems to glide. At ground level, nothing glides. People press forward, stop, adjust, wait, pull, sweat, and try not to lose contact with whoever came with them. The rope becomes a line of tension running through the procession, dense with bodies and intention. For many participants, touching or holding that rope is one of the central acts of the day. For the viewer, it is one of the clearest ways to understand the physical intensity of Círio. This is not a parade watched from a safe curb. It is a ritual many people enter with their whole body. Along the route, smaller details tell their own story. There are ex-votos, offerings carried by participants, sometimes shaped to represent body parts, houses, cars, or other personal concerns, turning private struggles into public objects. There are angels' cars and promise cars in the wider symbolism of the festival. There are floral arrangements layered over the carriage in cream, yellow, white, and green. There are palm wood Meriti toys linked to the season, reminding viewers that Círio is also tied to local craft traditions. There are official posters and windows and countless improvised decorations that no central organizer ever fully controls. The city edits the festival in real time. Food is part of that atmosphere too, even if it lives slightly beyond the main route. Círio in Belém is inseparable from the meals that surround it, especially the famous family lunch. In markets and homes, dishes associated with the season appear again and again. Manisoba, dark and slow cooked from cassava leaves and meats. Pato no tucupi, duck in the region's bright yellow broth, and other Amazonian flavors that tie the festival to place rather than abstraction. That matters because Círio is not only watched. It is cooked, hosted, tasted, and passed around a table. The procession may be the public face, but the meal is often where the day settles into family memory. As the morning pushes toward midday, the procession reaches its most intense emotional register. The nearer the image comes to Sanctuary Square, the more compressed the route feels. Sound rises from every direction at once. Crowd noise, instructions, applause, bells, engines in the distance, the steady friction of bodies moving together. The basilica appears ahead like a visual target, and suddenly the whole city seems oriented toward one point. This is the peak moment, not because of a single dramatic gesture, but because of accumulation. Hours of waiting, heat, pressure, movement, tears, exhaustion, and expectation collapse into the sight of arrival. And yet one of the most revealing parts of Círio comes after the climax. Once the image reaches the square and the main journey is completed, the mood changes fast. Some people remain in a state of visible release. Others sit on curbs, drained. Groups search for missing relatives or friends. Street crews begin the long work of cleaning. Vendors count what is left. Families head home for lunch. The route that felt impossible a short time earlier begins to reopen. By late afternoon, Belém is no longer one giant current. It breaks back into neighborhoods, homes, and recovering bodies. At sunset, the city changes again. Gold light hits the basilica facade. The most crowded hours are over, but the emotional residue hangs in the air. In some places, there is still song, conversation, traffic, and celebration. In others, there is just fatigue and relief. Night falls on a city that has spent itself. This quieter transformation is easy to miss in short news clips, but it is one of the most cinematic parts of the whole festival. Morning belongs to scale. Night belongs to aftermath. There are also lesser-known details that give Círio extra depth. UNESCO notes that the celebration spills into homes, shops, bars, markets, and institutions through small altars, making the city itself part of the ritual landscape. It also notes that the event blends not only religious meaning, but aesthetic, touristic, social, and cultural dimensions. For some, Círio is a spiritual obligation. For others, it is a statement of belonging. For some groups, it has even served as a space for political visibility. That complexity matters. It keeps the festival from becoming a postcard image. Belém is not performing a frozen tradition. It is negotiating a living one. Modern technology has entered the story as well. Organizers now offer tools that help participants track the progress of the procession, and visitors can choose wildly different ways to experience the event. Shoulder to shoulder on the sidewalk, in grandstands from VIP viewing points, or even from boats during the fluvial procession. But none of that has reduced the importance of embodied participation. Younger generations still come with parents and grandparents. Children still grow up inside the visual language of the poster, the mantle, the rope, the boats, the family lunch, and the square in front of the basilica. Transmission here is not abstract, it is sensory. The economic impact is just as real. Hotels, restaurants, transport operators, florists, designers, printers, artisans, market vendors, and informal sellers all feel the festival's pull. The official rope alone now supports regional production networks in Pará through Malva Fiber and manufacturing. Tourism agencies promote the event, but Círio is bigger than tourism. It generates movement through the city's economy while also protecting forms of memory that cannot be measured by ticket sales alone. That is one reason it was recognized as cultural heritage in Brazil and later by UNESCO as intangible heritage of humanity. So why does Círio still matter in 2026? In an age of fast images and short attention spans? Because it resists speed. It forces attention onto bodies, streets, craft, history, and place. It turns a modern city into a stage where colonial memory, Amazonian geography, public devotion, family tradition, and contemporary logistics all meet at once. It is massive, but also intimate. It is visually overwhelming, but built from countless personal stories. And even if you arrive with no connection to its religious meaning, it is difficult not to recognize the human force of a city willing to organize itself around memory for more than 200 years. In the end, the most striking thing about Brazil's Círio de Nazaré is not simply that millions gather. It is that the gathering still feels handmade. Beneath the drone shots and headlines, the festival is carried by people decorating windows, sewing mantles, preparing food, setting up barriers, pulling rope, steering boats, making posters, offering water, guiding elders, lifting children, and returning year after year to the same route between cathedral and basilica. That route is short. The story it holds is not. And maybe that is why Belém's great October procession continues to feel so powerful, because in just a few kilometers, it compresses history, identity, and emotion into something the camera can capture, but never fully contain.